All right, good day, everybody. To whoever's listening. All right, uh, coming back at you again with another lesson of knowledge with understanding. So, all praise to the Most High for blessing it to be so and blessing me to be able. All right, now this lesson is going to basically be on something that's pretty common and that, we're all pretty familiar, well, most of us are familiar with, and it's tithing. And you might wonder, think to yourself, well, why tithing? When there's a lot more in life or in the world that's going on besides tithing. Well, when you consider the church today, tithing is something that's continuously going on in the church. So our people that are of the Israelite nation or the Israelite community, meaning black people that have been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, and especially here in America, that go to churches and partake of giving tithe, have to be made aware of what tithing is. So, if, so most people have no idea of what tithing is or what it's supposed to be. And I'm not saying that everybody that hears this lesson or hear, a lesson of this sort is going to change their ways. So, for those people that don't see any merit in a lesson like this, and feel like, it doesn't benefit them, and they want to continue to give tithe in the way that they do, then, what can you say or do about that? But for the people that may be a part of a church or, of some sort, and that are giving tithes, and if the Lord moves you to understand what this lesson is speaking about, then you're the person that this lesson would be for, to hear and understand, and hopefully take heed to it and make a change about, what you're doing with your finances. Because today, nowadays, at this day and age, the more finances that you have for yourself, to provide for you and your family and provide for the future of things to come, whether it be preparing, storing up, stocking up the things that you would need to be able to supply, you and your family with food, water, drink, or whatever it might be. It'll benefit you, okay? Because you can rest assured, most of the people that receive tithes from you, they have more than enough to do what they need to do to provide for them and their household. Okay, so but this lesson pretty much is going to be basically about tithes and what tithing is, or what should be tithe, and who was supposed to receive tithe, and should we be giving tithe today? All right. So, and I know in most cases, most of us, we feel like we have an obligation to the churches, and our conscience plays on us when we hear like something like this lesson that's going to go forth today, and we may get a little convicted and think to ourselves, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't give tithe of that sort. But after you've been a part of an organization or associated with something for so long, your conscience weighs in, and then your emotions take hold of you, and then you feel obligated, and then you, in most cases, continue on down that same path that you've been on for years, and for most of us, to no benefit, for you yourself of any sort or your household, and you're still under delusion of, if you give, or the more you give, things will change in your life. When the Lord is asking of you for you to change and hearken unto his word and keep his commandments, that's when things in your life will begin to change. It's not based on the money that you give, in tithes, okay? So before I get too sidetracked or lose my train of thought, I want to go ahead and jump right into this lesson here. And then, I'll be in and out speaking about certain things in reference to pretty much what goes on in the churches today and what's been going on in the churches for years. And, you have to consider yourself, how has it benefited you? Unless you're a part of the organization or the association, by association, and if you're just like, something like I said earlier, some of us are just gullible people, and we are, we're of a simple fashion, and some of us really don't have uh, a community to actually be affiliated with, so we have to give our time to places where we're being taken at. Well, according to the word of God, where we're doing things, we're giving money that we shouldn't have to give, for the most part. And but just because you have a place to affiliate with and be a part of and associate yourself with, that's also part of the reason, why some of us go and occupy our time in these places, and we give without any consideration as to why I'm doing it. Why am I doing this? Okay. So, and this is not to cause anybody to cut ties with any family members or anybody that friends or whatever or whoever, but you have to really examine what is it or why is it that you're giving, and is it to what gain is it, to what benefit, who is it helping, okay, and is it truly of the Lord? All right. So we're going to go and jump into the Bible real quick, and we're going to start in the book of Numbers, and this is going into the priest office, okay, of the children of Israel. Remember, there were 12 tribes of the children of Israel, and the Levites was one of the tribes. The Levite is the actual priesthood of the 12 tribes, meaning they did everything that pertained to uh, implying the laws of God when it came down to sacrifices and or even the punishment of the law. Everything had to go through them, first, in order for anything to be pretty much be done in reference to the law of the Lord. So let's deal with that first and find out who had the priesthood, and we're going to get into who was supposed to obtain tithe. Okay, so let's go to Numbers chapter 18, and we're going to start at verse 1 and 2. And this is just to show the position, the priesthood. All right, so we're going to start at verse 1, and we're going to read verse 1 and 2, and that's it. And then we'll move on. All right, so verse 1 says, this is again Numbers chapter 18, verse 1. Verse 1 reads, "And the Lord said unto Aaron, Thou and thy sons and thy father's house with thee shall bear the iniquity of the sanctuary, and thou and thy sons with thee shall bear the iniquity of your priesthood, and thy brethren also of the tribe of Levi, the tribe of thy father, bring thou with thee, that they may be joined unto thee, and minister unto thee, but thou and thy sons with thee shall minister before the tabernacle of witness." All right, I'll stop right there. So the scripture's basically saying that, and as you read the history of it, you'll understand that the priest office belonged to the children of Levi. But Aaron and his sons, they're the ones that actually had to do the ministry of the tabernacle, of going into the tabernacle. Even though the other Levites of the tribe of Levi, they had the position of the priesthood in reference to setting up the tabernacle and everything that was required, as well as taking in the offerings, the offerings, the tithe, and the things of that nature from the children of Israel. Okay, so now let's go over and show how the Lord chose Aaron and his brethren to be the priest office. So let's jump over to actually to be of the priesthood. Let's look at Numbers chapter 17, same book, 17. We're going to start at verse 1. All right. So now this is Numbers chapter 17. And we're going to start at verse 1 and read down to verse 10. And now this verse 1, it says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and take of every one of them a rod, according to the house of their fathers. Of all their princes, according to the house of their fathers, 12 rods. Write thou every man's name upon his rod, and thou shalt write Aaron's name upon the rod of Levi. For one rod shall be for the head of the house of their fathers. And thou shalt lay them up in the tabernacle of the congregation before the testimony, where I will meet with you. And it shall come to pass that the man's rod whom I shall choose shall blossom, and I will make to cease from me the murmuring of the children of Israel, whereby they murmur against you. Let me stop right there for a minute. Now, the children of Israel were murmuring against Moses because they wanted to take part of the priesthood above that which the Lord had given them. Remember I said earlier that Aaron and his sons, his line his lineage specifically actually had the priest office where they actually went into the tabernacle of the congregation, and that was for them to do. But you had some of the other Levites or Israelites that were of the tribe of Levi. They wanted to take on that just as well. When the Lord said he wanted only Aaron's family to do that. Okay, so let's look at verse 6, and then I'll continue down to verse 10. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel, and every one of their princes gave him a rod apiece, for each prince one according to their father's house, even 12 rods. And the rod of Aaron was among them. So this is how the Lord chose or made known to the rest of the children of Israel who he wanted to choose to take on the priesthood in that aspect. And so he had each tribe give up a rod, an almond rod, to give to Moses, and then they had to put it inside of the I just read it just a minute ago. They had to put it before the testimony, and then the Lord is going to show whichever rod blossoms, that's who he's going to show that. That's how he shows, or that's how he's going to show who he's choosing to take that position of the priesthood. Okay, so verse 7, it says, and Moses laid up the rods before the Lord in the tabernacle of witness. And it came to pass that on the morrow Moses went into the tabernacle of witness, and behold, the rod of Aaron for the house of Levi was budded, and brought forth buds, and bloomed, blossoms, and yielded almonds. And Moses brought out all the rods from before the Lord unto all the children of Israel, and they looked, and took every man his rod. And the Lord said unto Moses, bring Aaron's rod again before the testimony, to be kept for a token against the rebels. And thou shalt quite take away their murmuring from me, that they die not. Okay, so the Lord said he told Moses make a plaque, basically, and for lack of words, for Aaron's rod, and make for a memorial, so that when the other tribes of the children of Levi, not of the tribes of Israel, but the other families of the tribe of Levi start getting beside themselves, or anybody of the children of Israel, and start feeling like they should take on the priest office, the Lord want them to be able to see that rod that he caused to bloom, so that they'll know that this is who he chose for the priest office. So we might as well be quiet. Okay, so now let's show why he chose Levi. All right, so let's go to verse 18. Let's go to chapter 18 once again, and we're going to go to chapter 18 once again, and we're going to go to verse 20 and 21. All right, verse 20 says, and the Lord spake unto Aaron, thou shalt have no inheritance in their land. Now he's talking about in the land of the children of Israel. All the other tribes inherited land after they came out of the land of Egypt and they conquered the other nations that the Lord told them to go and conquer and take the land. But out of all the tribes, the children of Levi, they didn't get any inheritance. So the other tribes had to take care of the children of Levi by giving them, which we're going to get into, but I'll say it now, by giving them tithe. This is why tithing even came about for the children of Israel, or for the Levites. Now, even though it was previously, it was in the days of Abraham, just as well, but after the Lord caused the flood to come about and the world started over, and then after the children of Israel went into captivity, because you got to remember, all these, this comes all the way down from the bloodline of Adam, aside from all the other people that were on the earth. The children of Israel come out of the bloodline of Adam. So once the children of Israel begin to be established again, well, the children of Israel got to be established again after they came out of the land of Egypt, the Lord began to set them up, and he gave them the priesthood once again, and then he invoked the tithing just as well. All right, so I'll start at verse 20 again. It says, "And the Lord spake unto Aaron, thou shalt have no inheritance in their land, neither shalt thou have any part among them. I am thy part, and thine inheritance among the children of Israel. And behold, I have given the children of Levi all the tenth in Israel for an inheritance, for their service which they serve, even the service of the tabernacle of the congregation." So here, the children of Levi are the ones that received a tenth of the tithe, which is tithe. Tithe means tenth. That's what tithe means. So the children of Levi are the ones that received that. So, and the reason why they received it is because they didn't inherit any land. It's their duty and their job to take care of the tabernacle and all the things that was, consistent to be a part of the priesthood. Like I said, they had to deal with a lot of animals, when it came down to sacrifices and feast days and things of that nature. If you go through the scriptures and you read, when you get in your own time, you'll find out how many animals that they had to deal with when it came to certain holy days. All right, they had a lot to do, and setting up that tabernacle and everything else just as well. So this is why tithing came about, okay? Because again, the children of Levi, they didn't have or inherit any land amongst the children of Israel. So in receiving the priest office, tithing was one of the things that they received also. And we're going to go a little bit farther into it. Let's go to Numbers chapter 18, same chapter. Well, I'm just going to continue to read, but it's going to be 22 down to 24. And I'll be basically showing you the same thing that I just made mention of. Not the same thing, but adding to it what I just made mention of in reference to them, the children of Levi, gaining a tenth of all that the children of Israel brought forth. Okay, so verse 22, and we're going to read down to 24. It says, "Neither must the children of Israel henceforth come nigh the tabernacle of the congregation, lest they bear sin and be unalived." And then verse 23 says, "But the Levites shall do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they shall bear their iniquities. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations, that among the children of Israel they have no inheritance. But the tithes of the children of Israel, which they offer as an heave offering unto the Lord, I have given to the Levites to inherit. Therefore I have said unto them, among the children of Israel they shall have no inheritance." So the other 11 tribes, it was their duty to take care of the tribe of Levi because they had to take care of the office of the priesthood. So again, tithing went to them. So now here's something that you got to consider. If the Lord gave tithing to the children of Israel, you think about it today. Why and how is it that other nations of people that are not of the tribes of Israel, and not only are they not of the tribes of Israel, but they're not of the priest office of the Levites? How is it that they are able to take upon themselves the custom of tithing when we see right here that God gave this to the children of Israel of the tribe of Levi? That belongs to them, nobody else. So how is it that other nations of people are now partaking of this custom or this heritage, which is a part of the inheritance of the children of Levi, of the nation of Israel? Now that's something that you have to think about yourself, and you have to wonder and consider, because over the years, many of us have given, a lot to a lot of these places, and then you got to consider that over the years, regardless of what you think you might have gained out of it, or whatever it is that when emotions can cause you to make a lot of bad decisions and choices. When you get overly excited and things of that nature, for something that you think, where it causes you to make you, it will cause you to think that you're doing the right thing. But when you get the truth or the understanding of the truth about what you've done over the years, it can kind of put a bad taste in your mouth. And once that happens, you either, you get upset about it and then you reject the truth and you just continue on and doing what you're doing, or you really truly consider it and you question whoever it is that you're giving tithe to, and they won't give you, they'll give you some kind of answer, but it won't be the right answer, not according to the Bible. So then once that happens, you got to be the person to make that choice and that decision. Am I going to continue to do it, to give tithe, to go down this same path? And then you got to wonder, to what gain? So basically it boils down to it being all in vain, because again, if they're not of the tribe of Levi, of the nation of Israel, of the 12 tribes of Israel, then all that you're giving is all in vain. All right. So eventually here we're gonna get into what tithing should actually be. Okay. So let's go to 2 Chronicles, and let's see here. I forgot to I tell you what, let's jump to Leviticus chapter 27. All right. Chapter 27 and verse 32. There's many scriptures like this. I just forgot to write my actual chapter, my chapter in scripture down on that 2 Chronicles. Okay, so let's go to Leviticus chapter 27, verse 32, and we're gonna read that real quick. All right, verse 32 reads, "And concerning the tithe of the land of the herd." Now this is showing you what the tithing was at this particular time, and I'm not even gonna mention anything about is or what it is today. I'm just gonna stick with what it was, and this shows you what tithing was. All right, so verse 32, it says, "And concerning the tithe of the herd is cattle, or of the flock, birds, even of whatsoever passeth under the rod, The 10th shall be holy unto the Lord. Now the rod is the law. If it's, when the Lord said these type of animals would be clean, whatever passes under the rod to be clean animals that the children of Israel could eat or partake of, it would have to be it was able to that's what was considered to be tithe. Okay, so now let's go to I just got a few of them. Let's go to Nehemiah real fast, which is another verse in reference to what tithing was, or what the tithe was at this time, which I got a few more I'm going to get into a little bit later, but let's go to Nehemiah real quick. Verse chapter 13, verse 12, and it reads, Then brought all Judah the tithe of the corn and the new wine and the oil unto the treasurers. Again, this is showing you what the tithe was. My point is that tithe was not money. Okay? Tithe was the increase of your field and or wine and oil. Okay? That's the point that I'm making, which I'm going to get into it a little bit more in depth, but I got a few more verses that I need to go through in respects to tithing and what the common misconception of a couple of verses that they use in the church in reference to cause people to give, and this one is a real common verse, which is, will a man rob God? And that's what we're going to touch on here right now. So let's go over to Malachi chapter 3, and we're going to start at verse 7. All right, so give me a minute. Let me get to it real first. All right, so Malachi chapter 3, and we're going to start at verse 7. Now, this is a verse that's been used for many years in the churches to cause people to feel, like I mentioned earlier, that emotional guilt, to cause you to feel as though, you were taking something from God. And it's a disingenuous thing, for men to do, or anybody for that matter, men and women. When some people, they're barely getting by in life, in the world, and have been for a long time, but to be taken advantage of by people that misconstrue the word of God or falsely teach it, it's just a terrible thing. Okay, so we're just going to jump into this scripture real quick, and I just want to show you what the Lord meant when he said what he said in Malachi. Okay, so let's look at Malachi chapter 3, and we're going to start at verse 7. All right, it says, verse 7, even for the days of your fathers, ye are gone away from mine ordinances. Now, he's saying, y'all have gone away from mine ordinances. This is what the Lord is saying through Malachi. He gave these words to Malachi. I started over. It says, even from the days of your fathers, ye are gone away from mine ordinances. Now, I'll stop right there for a moment. A part of the ordinances is, in which he's speaking about in the context of this, is in reference to the way that they had to deal with the order of the priesthood, or in the priest office, when it came down to the animals that they sacrificed or that they gave for tithing. Okay, so that's basically all he's saying, but I'll keep reading. And it says, and have not kept them. They didn't keep these ordinances, and I'm going to show you why he's saying this in a little bit. It says, return unto me, and I will return unto you, saith the Lord of hosts. But ye said, wherein shall we return? Then this is a question from the Lord. He says, will a man rob God? And now he's going to expound. He says, ye, this is what the people are saying. Yet ye have robbed me, but ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? Now, that's a question that the people are asking the Lord. And then the Most High said, in tithe and in offering. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. He's talking about the whole nation of Israel. Now, again, if he's making reference to the children of Israel robbing him of the tithe, this is another point or indication showing you that this is the nation of people that he gave that to. He gave tithing to them. He didn't give it to anybody else. Okay, so now let's go to Malachi chapter 1. And we're going to start at verse 6. All right. Now this is the Lord speaking. Well, Malachi speaking, but the Lord gave him the words. He says, verse 6, it says, for I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore, ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. The reason he's saying ye sons of Jacob are not consumed, because the Lord made a promise to our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he said that he would bring us back to our own homeland. But from this point, at this time that he's saying it, we were still in the land of Israel. But this is the reason that he's, I'm not going anywhere with that. I'm just making the point of that's why we're not consumed, because we've been hard-headed over the years, and the Lord could have done away with us from a long time ago, only because Moses prayed for us and the promise that he made to our forefathers. So I'll keep reading verse 7. It says, even from the days of your fathers, ye are gone away from mine ordinances. So now remember, he said the same thing over in Malachi chapter 3. All right, hold on. Let me make sure. Yeah, hold on. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I'm in the wrong chapter there. So I'm sorry about that. Let's go back. Let's go back to Malachi chapter 1, verse 6. Oh, okay, here we go. Now, it says in verse 6, my mistake. A son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is mine honor? And if I be a master, where is my fear, saith the Lord of hosts, unto you, O priest, that despise my name? And ye say, wherein have we despised thy name? Ye offered polluted bread upon mine altars. Here is the robbery that the Lord was speaking about over in Malachi chapter 3, verse 7 and 9, when he said, will a man rob God? This is how they robbed the Lord, by offering polluted bread on his altar. Okay, now I'll start at verse 7 again. Ye offer polluted bread upon mine altar, and ye say, wherein have we polluted thee? Now, even though this is saying, wherein have we polluted thee? Remember what we said over in Malachi 7 and 3? Wherein have we robbed thee? This is what we said to the Lord. He's just saying it's just saying it a different way right here. Okay, so I'll finish up in verse 7. It says, in that ye say the table of the Lord is contemptible. Verse 8. And if ye offer the blind for sacrifice, is it not evil? I'll start right there for a moment. Now he says, he's talking about blind animals. This is what they were doing. The children of Israel were offering blind sacrifices to the Lord. Okay, and I'm gonna go into it a little bit more in the same chapter here, a little farther down, but I'll keep reading. He says in verse 8, is it not evil? Offer it now unto the governor. So now he's saying, if you offer that to your governor, let's see what he's gonna say. Will he be pleased with thee, or accept thy person, saith the Lord of hosts? In other words, no, he won't. He was being somewhat facetious when he asked that question. All right, so this is how the children of Israel robbed the Lord. All right. So now let's jump down to verse 13 and verse 14. That's what we're going to read. Ye said, now you can read the rest of it in your own time, on straight down, from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 as well. But I just want to jump down just to get the remaining part of how they robbed the Lord of these of the tithe and offering. Okay, and it says in verse 13, ye said also, behold, what a weariness is it, and ye have snuffed at it, said the Lord of hosts, and ye brought that which was torn, and the lame, and the sick. Thus ye brought an offering. Should I accept this of your hands, saith the Lord. But cursed be the deceiver, which hath in his flock a male, and voweth and sacrificeth unto the Lord a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, saith the Lord of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. Okay, so then, you see how the Lord made mention of these very same things over in Malachi chapter. In fact, let's go back to it when he's talking about the flock, and let's go back to it and read it real quick. Malachi chapter 3. All right, verse 7. All right. In fact, let me see something real quick. I think I might want to read a little bit more into it. No, I think. Okay. Well, either way, I pretty much, I'll just read it again from verse 7. It says, even from the days of your fathers, ye are gone away from mine ordinances, and have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return unto you, saith the Lord of hosts. But ye said, wherein shall we return? Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithe and offering. That's what the Lord said. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. Now, that's the same curse that he just told them about over in, let me go back to it, Malachi chapter 1. Let me not make that mistake again and not change my page. But Malachi chapter 1 and verse 14. But cursed be the deceiver, meaning the children of Israel that were bringing in offerings that were blind and lame and things of that nature, So that's the curse that he's speaking about over in chapter 3. All right. So enough said on that. So let's jump over to what was actually supposed to be done. Well, let me take that back. Let's jump over to Deuteronomy chapter 15 real quick. Let me touch on this here in reference to what the animal's supposed to have been like. See, because over here in Malachi, where he was just talking about how the animals were blind and lame and things of that nature, this is how they should have been. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 15. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. And verse 21. This is what the animals should have been like in order for them to be making sacrifices to the Lord. Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 21. And verse 21 reads, is that the right word? Yeah, 21. It says, and if there be any blemish therein, as if it be lame or blind, or have any ill blemish, thou shalt not sacrifice it unto the Lord thy God. So you see, and everything that verse 21 right here just said is what they were sacrificing to the Lord over in Malachi. So the point is that that's how they were robbing the Lord. Okay, that had nothing to do with robbing the Lord of money. All right. So now let me make sure. I got to get back on. I got to get on point here. Figure out, because I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit on a couple of those things. Okay, so let's go over to Deuteronomy. Stay in the book of Deuteronomy. Let's look at chapter 26. Let's go to chapter 26, and we're going to go to verse 12 and show what some of the okay, let's see. 12. All right. We're going to get into again some of what the tithing was supposed to be. All right, chapter 26, verse 12. All right, verse 12 reads, when thou hast made an end of tithing, all the tithe of thine increase, the third year. Now this is a 3-year tithe, which is the year of tithing, and has given it unto the Levites, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, that they may eat within thy gates and be filled. So the purpose of the children of Israel, or the Levites, taking tithe from the 12 tribes, from the other 11 tribes, not only was it to take care of the Levites, but the Levites were supposed to also use those tithes to help take care of the fatherless and the widows and the strangers. Now, I know some might be thinking about, the strangers, which I'm not going to veer off into anything in reference to the strangers, but the strangers are talking about children of Israel that ventured off and sojourned into other countries, and they came back, and they were strangers as they came back into the community of the Israelites. All right, that's all that is. But the point is that they had to take the point. The tithing here is food. It's food from your ground. It's not money. And even with that being said, they had to take this tithe that they got, and this is a 3-year tithing, aside from an annual tithing or a day-by-day tithing or weekly tithing of whatever sort. Whenever they gave in reference to tithing, it had to be for the purpose of the Levites or the community of the children of Israel. Okay, so now let's go into a little bit more in reference to what tithing was for, and to show that it wasn't money, because money existed even in these days. And we're gonna get into it a little bit more, just with a couple of scriptures in the days of Christ, just as well. All right, so let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 14. And this is just going to show again what we just read, with what the children of Israel did, or the Levites did, and how that they were supposed to take care of. Verse 12, and verse 12, how they were supposed to take care of the strangers, the fatherless, and the widows. And it says that they may eat within in thy gates and be filled. Let's go and show you that taking place in Deuteronomy chapter 14, and we're going to start at verse 22. We're going to start at verse 22 and read down to about 26. All right. Now, I'll just start reading, then I'll explain it. Verse 22 says, thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed. Again, seed from the field. Seed is what you plant in the ground. Okay? And then it's going to continue on. As I read, it's going to show you that these are things that come from the field. It said, I'll start it over. Verse 22. Excuse me. It says, thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed that the field bringeth forth, year by year. And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose to place his name there. The tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thine oil, and the firstlings of thy herds, and of thy flocks, and that thou mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always. So again, the scriptures are showing you what tithe was supposed to be. Now, this is not finished. We're gonna get into it. It's gonna keep, as I keep reading, it's gonna go into it a little bit more. and explain a little bit more about these tithes. Okay, verse 24, it says, and if the, 24, yeah. It says, and if the way, remember in 23, it just said the place where the Lord chose to put his name. That's where the children of Israel was going to go and hold this feast of tithe, the 3-year tithe. Verse 24 says, and if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee, which the Lord thy God shall choose to set his name there, when the Lord thy God have blessed thee. So now he's saying, say like, if you live in a particular area, a city, and you have, well, let me finish reading it. Let me read verse 25, and then I'll come back and explain it. 25 and 26. And verse 25 says, then shalt thou turn it into money, and bind up the money in thine hand, and shalt go unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose, and thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever thy soul desireth. And thou shalt eat there before the Lord thy God, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thine household. All right, so now I'll stop right there. Now I'll go back up, and I'll start at 22 again, but I'm going to expound on each one of these verses. And I'll read verse 22. It says, thou shalt surely truly tithe all the increase of the seed of thy seed that the field bringeth forth year by year. Okay, so that's food from the field. Verse 23, and thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God, in the place which he shall choose to place his name. So there's a place that the Lord is going to choose in Jerusalem to place his name for the children of Israel to meet up and eat here. This feast of tithing. Okay, and I'll keep reading. And it says, place his name there, the tithe of the corn, of the wine, of thy wine, and of thine oil, and the firstling of thy herds, and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always. So it's just going into what tithing is: wine, corn, herd, flocks, and things of that nature. So then it says in verse 24, and if the way be too long for thee, so that means if you're one person, or you and your family, and say you got 20 sheep, you got 5 ox, and you got 15 he goats, and you got a whole buggy of corn, and so on and so forth. If you have too much stuff to carry, if you're too far away from the place that the Lord choose, you're not going to be able to bring all this stuff with you. So this is what the Lord is asking you to do. In verse 24, it says, and if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee, which the Lord thy God shall choose to set his name there, when the Lord thy God have blessed thee, then shalt thou turn it into money. So he's saying, if you're too far away from the place that the Lord choose, because the children of Israel had to come back to Jerusalem 3 times in a year to keep these feast days, and this was one of them. Okay, so he's saying, take all of that stuff in the city that you're in presently and sell it, the sheep, the ox, the corn, the wine, and turn it into money. That's what verse 25 is saying. Turn it into money. And then he says, bind up the money. Don't give it to the preacher. He says, bind up the money in thine hand, and go unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. And then you and your family, get on your horse, or back then, get on your horse and get in your carriage, and then you go to Jerusalem. You take that money that you sold, all that stuff, all the sheep and ox and corn that you sold in your city, you take that money, and then when you get to the place that the Lord chose, This is what verse 26 is saying. He says in verse 26, and thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after. So he's saying now that money that you brought with you, take it, and when it says you should bestow it on whatsoever your soul lusteth after, and it tells you, it tells you it when you continue to read. It says for oxen. It ain't say for a car or for an airplane or for a diamond watch or anything else outside of what it was supposed to be for. But see, because some will look and say, well, it's say for whatever your soul lusteth after. Yeah, of the finest sheep, of the finest ox. Okay, if I see this ox, he looks better to me, or he's more healthier than that ox. Oh, I like that ox. Give me that one. I see these sheep, they're in a lot better condition than these sheep over here. I like these better. Give me these sheep. This same, so on and so forth with the corn and the wine, whatever your soul lusteth after of these things. Okay, not your own, not your own stuff, or something for your own good or own gain. So I'll read verse 26 again. It says, and thou shalt bestow thy money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink. Now, right there where it says strong drink, even though I'm not a drinker, but this kills the notion that some people in the church today, or whoever you are, that serve the Lord or say that you serve the Lord, and you think that you're not supposed to drink. You think it's a sin to drink. Well, right here, he said you can sell that money, and once you sell that money, you can buy, once again, strong drink. That means liquor. That's not wine. That means liquor or alcohol. But in drinking, whoever you are, you have to know how to drink in moderation, just like Christ did. Okay? And that's neither here nor there. I'm not going into anything about that, but I'll continue on. It says, or for whatsoever thy soul desireth, and thou shalt eat there before the Lord thy God, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thine household. So everybody had to partake of that tithing that was given. It wasn't just for the preacher or, him and his household and all the luxurious things that he desired to buy, with the money that you given. And again, remember, this is for the Levites. Are any of the preachers today of the tribe of Levi? Do they profess to be of the tribe of Levi in order to be able to obtain tithe from anybody? Because remember, I showed you earlier, that's who the Lord gave tithing to. And there was a reason that you know already now. The reason as to why he gave tithing to the children of Israel is because they didn't get any inheritance. I mean, not the children of Israel, but the tribe of Levi, because they didn't have any inheritance among the 12 tribes, among the other tribes, rather, put it that way. Okay, so there you go. And now, if you or whoever might say, okay, well, that's Old Testament. Well, let's deal with the New Testament. And this is even in the days of Christ, all right? So let's go over to, in other words, let's deal with the New Testament to see if anything had changed in respects or regards to tithing, all right? And if it was turned or changed into now giving money instead of corn and oil and wine and things of that nature, which I mentioned to you earlier. So let's go to Luke chapter 11 and verse 42. Now this is the Lord talking, the Messiah, Christ, and he's talking to Pharisees and things of that nature. And now, with me saying this and with me bringing this lesson out in reference to tithing, it has nothing to do with giving an offering or giving alms, because you can give alms and you can give an offering. Now, if the wrong preacher or minister even hear me say that, they'll find some kind of way to use this to their advantage, to manipulate the people of the congregation, just so that they can still obtain gain from you. But again, you yourself, as you hear this lesson, you have to consider, what is it that they're teaching you? Are they teaching you that you are of the nation of Israel? Are they teaching you that you have to keep the commandments of the Most High? Are they teaching you that in order for you to be received of the Lord at the time of his return, you have to be found without spot and blemish? Or in other words, you have to be found keeping his laws, which are commandments. That word law and commandments are interchangeable. So is that what they're teaching you? Not some prosperity trope, or just some kind of conversation that only leads into you giving more. You giving more for whatever reason, whether it be for some type of tithe, or uh, whatever personal days, a personal thing that they like to use to cause you to give money. You know, um, come on, you gotta be. And there's one of the verses that I like to use. I think it's Proverbs 6 and 7. In all thy getting, get understanding. You yourself have to learn how to make a choice and come outside of that emotional state that you're in, so that you're not mesmerized or hypnotized to the theatrics of what they do to keep you. Like I said, to whoever it matters to, you should know to make the change. But the ones that, if you just, you want to be faithful and true to whoever the people are that you're following, and you believe that they're teaching you the right way, even though you see and hear the evidence, and you might not even want to pick your Bible up and read it because you don't want to change from what you're doing. So that's going to be something that you have to take up with the Most High when he returns, all right? Or with the Lord when he returns. Okay, so again, let's look at Luke chapter 11, verse 42. It says, but woe unto you, Pharisees. This is Christ speaking. These are red letters. And I just want to make one point out of this. He says, but woe unto you, Pharisees, for ye tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs, and pass over judgment. Well, I want to make more than one point. I'll read it again. It says, but woe unto you, Pharisees, for ye tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs, and pass over judgment and the love of God. These ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone. So again, you see where even the Messiah is saying that they tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs. He didn't say anything about money. You understand? He didn't say anything about money in respects to giving tithe. Now, the other point that I would like to make out in this verse, without going astray too far, is he says, and pass over judgment and the love of God. Now, the love of God is keeping his commandments, because even the Most High, even Christ said in John 14 and 15, if ye love me, keep my commandments. And 1 John, I think it's 5 and 3 and 4, the Lord said, this is the love of God, if ye keep my commandments. That's what the love of God is. So in loving God, we have to keep his commandments. But the other point is, he said that we pass over judgment. Now, judgment right here is what a lot of us don't like, because we're quick to say, you can't judge me. But Christ right here said that we pass over judgment. Just imagine if we had people that were true and truthful in judging matters the right way, and our people, we wouldn't have a lot of the so many words I can use, and at the moment I can't even think of now. But we wouldn't have a lot of the chaos in our community or amongst us as a people, if only we would judge our children before they get out there and partake of the world. Because if you judge your children in your household without fear, some of us are afraid to correct our children. The judgment is correction, okay? Or judgment can be when you give judgment on how something should be done. for your instruction, in other words, for your children to follow, it would benefit your household. And imagine if each household didn't pass over judgment when we're out in the world, it would be a great reflection amongst us as a people, when it comes down to it, in society. And not only in society, but in the eyes of the Most High. So that's one thing that we have to consider. We have to learn how to not pass over judgment and learn how to judge matters and our households just as well, and even one another. But again, like I said, I don't want to veer off too much from what this lesson is about, which is about tithe. Okay, so now again, like I said, tithing, even here in the days of Christ, even though they gave tithe, the reason that they gave tithe at this time and point is because the Levites were still around. Remember, the temple was still standing and the Levites still had the priesthood. But after the Levites, well, if you're familiar with the scriptures, how when the Jerusalem got ransacked and they had to flee, and now you consider today's time when the Lord said he was going to pour his spirit out upon the dry bones, which is us over here in America. We're not necessarily Levites. Some of us are Judah, mainly Judah, that's waking up and beginning to teach the people. So that didn't come with the priesthood that he gave the children of Israel back in those days. Right now, the Lord is putting his spirit on men to speak and teach, to draw the people back, to begin to keep his commandments and things of that nature. But there's no priesthood to be set up because we have no temple here. Okay? And if we want to use whatever priesthood, that we would like to use, then you still have to consider that tithing would be today just as it was back in the days of old. Corn, oil, wine, and herbs, things of that nature, because they still both exist. They existed back then when the priest office was in full array. And even though we have money today, you can still plant. Plenty of people plant, even if it's on their backyard, on their back porch, or in their yard. You can plant cabbage, corn, or whatever fruit. I'm sorry, not fruit, but whatever you would like to plant. And you can put a chicken coop in your backyard and things of that nature. So if anybody is saying that, you got to pay tithe today or they're of a priesthood, then they should be willing to accept those type of tithing, just as the priest did back in those days. And again, whatever tithing anybody receive, it has to be to take care of the nation or the people of Israel. And today, that doesn't happen. All right. So I want to give an example of, I got a couple more examples, a couple more scriptures, then I'll be done. But I want to give an example of how the children of Israel gave offerings. Like today, a lot of, and it has been for years, a lot of churches have had this thing that they like to call the building fund, and they like to, have the people pay money and continuously, and it almost seemed nonstop, just to have a building that, they want to have put up or built, when more than likely the Lord didn't even tell them to do it. All right, so let's go over to the book of 2 Kings. Let me get that real quick. Okay, 2 Kings, chapter 12. Excuse me. And we're going to start at verse 4. A little bit of reading here, because it's a story of the children of Israel when there was a queen. Well, one of the, I forget his name, but anyhow, his mother, she became the queen of Israel, or the head of Israel. And she did that by unaliving all the children, the male children that would have became kings after the king died. But I think this was what I think it was the sister that um, rescued one of the children and stowed him away until he became old enough, to regain the office of the king. And once that happened, um, they then began to restore and rebuild the temple. And with them doing that, they had to take in offerings. So let's see what they did with the offerings that they received, and how long did it last, and was it continuous, and or did they use it for their own personal gain, to get to buy the things that they wanted for themselves and their families. All right. So let's go to, again, like I said, 2 Kings chapter 12. We're going to start at verse 4. All right. And Josiah said to the priests, all the money of the dedicated things that is brought into the house of the Lord, even the money of the, let me make this screen a little bit bigger, even the money of every one that passeth the account, the money that every man is set at, and all the money that cometh into any man's heart to bring into the house of the Lord. Let the priest take it to them, every man of his acquaintance, and let them repair the breaches of the house. Wheresoever any breach shall be found. But it was so that in the 23 and 20th year of King Jehoash, the priest had not repaired the breach of the house, because over a period of time, nothing happened, but collection was still being taken. Okay, so now let's see what the king did afterwards. In verse 7, it says, the king Jehoash called for Jehoiada the priest and the other priests, and said unto them, why repair ye not the breaches of the house? Now therefore receive no more money of your acquaintance, but deliver it for the breaches of the house. So he told them to stop receiving money. Don't receive any more money. The money that you've already received, take it and deliver it to the men that it needs to go to in order for the house to be repaired. Okay, now let's see what happened in verse 8. And the priest consented to receive no more money of the people, neither to repair the breaches of the house. So they didn't repair the breaches of the house. So let's see what it says in verse 9. But Jehoiada, the priest, took a chest and bored a hole in the lid of it. This is where they get the idea from, when you see some of those guys out on the street corners with the bucket, and they got the hole, or the little bucket, and they got the hole in the top of it. This is where they get it from. And it says, I read verse 9 again. It says, but Jehoiada the priest took a chest and bored a hole in the lid of it, and set it beside the altar on the right side, as one cometh into the house of the Lord. And the priest that kept the door put therein all the money that was brought into the house of the Lord. And it was so, when they saw that there was much money in the chest, that the king's scribe and the high priest came up, and they put up in bags and told the money that was found in the house of the Lord. Now, it's mighty funny that all this money that was in the house of the Lord, these honest men put all of it in bags after counting it and everything, and they put it up. And then they told, all the money that was found. You don't have honest people in the church. You don't have honest people today like that. Verse 11 says, and they gave the money, being told, into the hands of them that did the work. They gave that money into the hands of the carpenters and I'm just using terms today, carpenters, electricians, the plumbers and things of that nature, to do the work. And in verse 11, I'll continue to read. It says, and they gave the money, being told, into the hands of them that did the work, that had the oversight of the house of the Lord, and they laid it out to the carpenters and builders that wrought upon the house of the Lord, and to masons and hewers of stone, and to buy timber and hew stone to repair the breaches of the house of the Lord, and for all that was laid out for the house of to repair it. Howbeit, there were not made for the house of the Lord bowls of silver, snuffers, basins, trumpets, any vessels of gold or vessels of silver of the money that was brought into the house of the Lord. So they didn't spend the money that was brought in on anything excess other than what they needed it for. They spent it on what they needed it for primarily. And verse 14 says, but they gave that to the workmen and repaired therewith the house of the Lord. Moreover, they reckoned not with the men into whose hand they delivered the money to be bestowed on workmen, for they dealt faithfully. So they all that money that they gave to these men to do the work, they didn't even have to question these men or even ask about these men in respects to are they honest, because these men they dealt faithfully. Okay, so they were able to give the money over to them and had trust that they would do what they were supposed to do with the money. In verse 16 it says, the trespass money and sin money was not brought into the house of the Lord. It was the priest. Okay, so now right there, some might say, oh man, you see right there, that money went to the priest. What kind of money was it? It was sin money and trespass money. This was not tithe. Okay, so again, you still cannot use tithing being money to accept that today from the people, if you're not of the tribe of Levi. Okay, once again, it's just that simple. All right, so and I'll start right there, and then we'll go. Let's look at another form of giving real quick, and then I'll be done. Let's go to Acts chapter 4. Let me give me a minute to get to it. Okay, Acts chapter 4, and we're going to start at verse 32 and read to verse 37. Chapter 4, Acts chapter 4, verse 32. Verse 32 says, and the multitude of them, hold on 1 second, that believed were of one heart and of one soul. Neither said any of them that aught of the things which he had possessed was his own, but they had all things common. And with great power gave the apostles witness of the resurrection of the Lord Jesus. Now, this here is just talking about early on where the apostles talked to the people, where they were witnessing to the crowd, and it was about 5,000 of them when you read early on in the chapter. When they gave with great power, they gave witness, the apostles gave witness. That means they witnessed of the resurrection of Christ, because that's what they were speaking to the crowd about, the resurrection of Christ. And great grace was upon them all. Verse 34, neither was there any among them that lacked. For as many as were possessors of land or houses sold them, and brought the price of the things that were sold, and laid them down at the apostles' feet. This is just said in verse 34. Neither was there any among them that lacked, for as many as were possessors of lands, or houses sold them, even the house that they lived in. And they sold those things, and then they brought the price of them to and laid them down before the apostles' feet in verse 35. And then I'll finish up verse 35. It says, and distribution was made unto every man according as he had need. So, some might say, well, they kept the houses that they lived in and they sold the excess. This said in verse 34, neither was there any among them that lacked, for as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them, and brought the prices of the things that were sold, and laid them down at the apostles' feet. But now when you go back up and look at verse 32, it says, I'll start at verse 32 again. It says, and the multitude of them that believed were of one heart and of one soul. Neither said of them that aught of the things which he possessed was his own. That meant even the own house that he lived in. He's saying not all of them. That's why it says that they were all of one soul. They all thought the same way. And it says in the middle of verse 32 of the second verse, neither said any of them that aught of the things which he possessed was his own, but they had all things common. So they sold everything that they had, and then they brought that money and they laid it down at the apostles' feet. And I'll show you what I'll finish up with this here in verse 35. It says, and distribution was made unto every man according as he had need. So after they sold all that they had and they brought that money and gave it and put it down at the apostles' feet, if they did have access, or if the house that they sold, they gained a great price of it, and now you consider this, if it's just me and my wife, and we had a nice big home, or we had lands, or whatever we had, we sold it, and we brought it and gave it to the apostles, as well as everybody else. We gave the price of the things we sold to the apostles. And now, when the scripture says they gave every man according as he had need, now we don't need a big 4-bedroom home. It's just me and my wife. That's what it means. That's what it means when it says gave according as he had need. Okay, we don't need, given the age or whatever, just speculating. We don't need 3 cars. It's just me and my wife now. We can use 2, or we don't, like I said earlier, we don't need a 4-bedroom home. We can do with a 2-bedroom home or a 3-bedroom home, something smaller. It doesn't have to be 6,000 square feet. It can be 2,000 square feet. I'm just throwing numbers out, just giving you the idea, trying to give you the idea of what I'm trying to say, the point that I'm trying to make. So if you had a family, aside from that man and wife, or that husband and wife, if you had another family that had a father and a mother, and they had 6 kids, so who would benefit more with the house that had 5 bedrooms? The bigger family. So this is what the scripture means when he says, gave unto every man according as he had need. These apostles were wise men, and they had understanding, and they were of the Spirit of the Lord. So they knew how to distribute money and possessions out to each person the way that it needed to be, so that it would benefit each one of them. And hold on, I was looking at something. And it would benefit each one of them to fit their needs. And it's just that simple, And like I said, they were all of one soul, so it didn't matter to them who got what. As long as everybody was taken care of. Now, the reason that I'm saying, let me finish reading it first. Let me finish reading. It says in verse 35 at the bottom, it says, and distribution was made unto every man according as he had need. And Joseph, who by the apostles was surnamed Barnabas, which is being interpreted the son of consolation, a Levite, and of the country of Cyprus, having land, sold it, and brought the money and laid it at the apostles' feet. All right. So again, it was something else I was looking for just to make the point a little bit more clear, how the scriptures talk about how when they went out and gathered, and those that gathered little or less had nothing. They gathered little, but they didn't have anything less. And those that gathered more didn't have, I can't remember the verse. I'm thinking about it, but I'm kind of in my mind, I'm kind of all over the place, but nevertheless, but that's the point. But now I'll say this with saying what I just said. You can't do this today with the men and women that run these churches and that are over these organizations. You do something like this today, you try something like this today, you and your family will be out in the cold. These men in the days of Paul and people, these men that the scriptures are talking about right here, they were godly men. They feared the Lord. So they feared to do the people hurt when it came down to it. All right. So, and I only use this verse just to show how that if you are righteous men of the Lord, this is how you would do things. But today, there's only one person that'll be living in a $20 million home while everybody else is living in a hut somewhere or possibly on the streets trying to get assistance just to make ends meet. And that's the way they operate today. All right. So be mindful. Again, the point of this lesson was to show that the tithing first went to the priests, which were of the tribe of Levi, of the 12 tribes of Israel. If you're not a priest of the tribe of Levi, you shouldn't be receiving tithes anyways. It doesn't belong to you. And if you're not of the nation of the children of Israel, tithing doesn't belong to you either. And to add, if you're going to receive tithe, if you say that you are of the nation of Israel and you teach the people, then you shouldn't have a problem with receiving corn, wine, oil, and flocks and herds and things of that nature that they gave to the children of Levi back in those days. Okay? So again, that's what this lesson was pretty much all about. And I think I had something else on my mind, but at the moment I can't even think about it. Kind of got sidetracked. But anyhow, again, even today, if men proclaim to be of the nation of Israel and receive tithe, they shouldn't have a problem with receiving corn and wine and oil and things of that nature. But again, there's no priest office. There's no priesthood. So what are you going to do? What are they going to do with the tithing that you give them? The best you can do is give alms and offerings. And that's pretty much it. All right. All right. That's it. Well, thank you and be blessed.